Hi, class. I'm making this video to give you all clearer instructions on what I'm looking for on your first paper, the paper dealing with Hottentot Venus, Sarah Baartman and the Hottentot Venus. This paper, of course, is going to be based on your readings. Now, you've had two main books that you read for this. You read Crace and Scully, Sarah Baartman, and Hottentot Venus. What they refer to as kind of a ghost story. Literally, saying that Sarah Baartman was kind of this ghost that was replaced by the Hottentot Venus. The other main book, of course, is your Leonard Thompson History of South Africa. Now, for Leonard Thompson History of South Africa, chapters 1 and 2 are important because chapter 1 talks about indigenous African people, talks about the San, the Khoikhoi, and people that they refer to as Africans, which you basically, I guess they want to avoid kind of the apartheid nomenclature that referred to Bantu, which referred to the Bantu languages that the majority of South Africans speak. And so that's chapter 1. Then chapter 2 is the chapter of the white invaders, which talks about the Dutch East Africa Company, which founds Cape Town, and the people who eventually become known as the Afrikaners, who first come in 1652. And eventually you have the English who take over administratively for good in 1806, and then English settlers who start coming in 1820. Now, the Thompson book, I'll talk about that first. The Thompson book is good because it gives you a good basic background. And the thing that's significant for the Thompson book is that Sarah Baartman, of course, is Khoikhoi. She comes from the background of the herders, and these are the people who, technically they're not slaves, but they are forced to be servants, and they are brought under the control of the Afrikaners. And so they're not really slaves, but they're not free people either. And so that's really important for understanding who she is. And also, chapter 2 is really good for just kind of understanding, how Cape Town was put together and how the society works. Now, the Crace and Scully book, on the other hand, really deals with Hottentot Venus, the mythology of the Hottentot Venus, and the reality of Sarah Baartman. And it's really important because, if you look in popular culture, I remember when I first heard about the Hottentot Venus, I heard that she was kept naked in cages, and they talked about, there are movies of her where they show her being abused sexually, that kind of thing. Now, apparently, real life was not quite that dramatic. She was not naked. If you all have read the book, she was in a body stocking, and she had some relation. Apparently, she might have been married, and she had some relations with folks, but the direct exploitation wasn't quite that direct. And so, but then also Crace and Scully is just good because it talks about the whole history, the intellectual history of how the Khoikhoi were presented in Western culture, how Western scientists, looked at their bodies, especially the bodies of women, and, argued that they weren't quite human, that somehow they were somewhere between being a true human being, which I suppose would be a European, and an ape, which, is silly, but, that was the thinking of the day in the West. And, of course, Crace and Scully is also significant because it talks about the legal case surrounding Sarah Baartman when she comes to Europe. And really, this is very important, too, because the book, of course, Sarah Baartman lives in a historical period of time. She's born in the late 1700s. When she comes to England, this is at the time when slavery is ending. There's a strong abolition movement. And when she comes to England, there's a question of what is her legal status. Is she free? Is she performing on her own free will? And, this becomes an important legal case that has precedents that, at least especially in terms of human trafficking, that kind of thing, women being forced into sex work. Certain legal principles that were developed in the Sarah Baartman case are still very resonant today. And, of course, towards the end of the book, it talks about how Sarah Baartman, the image of Sarah Baartman and the knowledge of Sarah Baartman has been adopted by black people all over the world. And in particular, it talks about her significance to the people of South Africa. I mean, she really has become a symbolic mother figure for the people of South Africa. Now, of course, all that's in the book, and you can go into that in greater detail, which I hope you do for the paper. But now, as for the paper itself, the paper itself is a short paper. I want it to be about 3 to 5 pages long, and I really want you to make use of the material that you've gotten from lectures. I want you to make use of the material that you've gotten from the books to show that you understand the questions that I've asked you about. And I'll probably add one more question. There's one more question that I'm going to add that deals with how the image of Sarah Baartman has been adopted and been taken on as a symbol of black womanhood by people in later years. Because that's something that's discussed in Crace and Scully towards the end. And I think it's really important. So I'll ask you all a question about that. But like I said, I want you all to use the books to prove your point. Now, I'm not asking you to write a research paper. You're not doing research. You're talking about material that you've gotten from assignments that I've given you. You don't have to write footnotes for this. Now, if you want to have like an MLA style citation where you have a bracket and you say what page you got information from, or if you want to have a bracket and say that you got this from one of my lectures, that's fine to cite your sources. I think that's appropriate. But it's not. But you're not writing a research paper, so you don't need to write Chicago-style footnotes for the paper. That's not necessary. What I do want to see, I want to see that you all have read the material. I want to see that you managed to listen to my lectures without going to sleep, and that you know what I was talking about. And I want to see that in your paper. As I said before, just think of this more as a book report, not a research paper. Even though you're using multiple books. As I said before, the goal is, for all the books that I'm going to assign you, whether it's this book, the Sarah Baartman book, or the Native Life in South Africa, which comes next, or the Alfred Nkrumah book, which is going to come after that. The goal with all these books, the reason I give you these books is that all of these books represent particular historical eras in South Africa and using very famous people to kind of show what went on. And they're different books. I mean, like, for instance, Crace and Scully is in history what we call a monograph. It's a research book written by two historians. When you get to Native Life in South Africa, that's what you call a polemic. It's a political book written to argue a point. Sometimes, maybe using extreme examples to make a political point, because he was trying to convince the people in England not to support the Union of South Africa. When you look at the Alfred Nkrumah book, that's a historical biography. And so all three books talk about different eras of South Africa, and they're all three different kinds of historical books. Like I said, a monograph, a polemic, and a biography. And so with the Baartman book, since it's a monograph, I want you all to, maybe think about the sources. When I ask you a question about, say, the status of Sarah Baartman, how does she fit into society? How does this affect, her going to England? Look at the sources that they give. Crace and Scully do a good job of researching and getting material that a lot of people didn't think was there. You want to look at those sources and see what information do they give you that helps you understand the material? When you look at Thompson, Thompson, of course, is writing a more general history. How does the specific history, for instance, of Sarah Baartman, fit with the more general history that you get from the Thompson book? How do you put those things together in order to argue the points that I want you to bring up when you're answering the questions? And of course, look at my lectures. Hopefully my lectures have useful points in it that can help you understand the material. And so the goal is to take all of those things and tie them together, using your own thoughts and your own words to write a report about what you are getting from the book. And like I said, I'm not asking you to write something long. When I say 3 to 5 pages, I mean 3 to 5 pages. I mean, if you write 3 quality pages, then you've done a good job. I don't want you to feel that you need to add stuff on that's fluff that doesn't make sense. Fluff don't get you a grade. All it does is get me irritated. So if it's on the shorter side, but it's obvious that you've read your material, you know what you're talking about, you're able to cite where you get your information, then you've done your job. And so, look at this assignment as a book report, and look at the questions that I'm giving you as guides that can help you write a book report that answers the kind of questions that I think are appropriate for the book. Well, anyway, if you have any questions, by all means, since I'm going to post this on YouTube, you can actually go to YouTube and you can shoot me questions on there, or you can email me. You can email me and ask me questions or whatever. If you think we need a Zoom meeting after this, then we will work that out. But I hope that this short video makes the assignment more clear to you. Anyway, you all have a good evening, and just look over the material. Kind of write things out. If you want to send me a rough draft for me to look at before the actual paper comes in, do that. I get paid to read the stuff, and so I don't mind doing that. That's part of my job. I mean, if we were in a classroom, we'd do that. Since we're out of synchronous, we have to do it online, but we can still get done. I'm happy to look at your material. The state of Illinois pays me to look at your material. So by all means, send me stuff if you have any questions about if you're on the right track. Take care.